Who is the worst AD champion in League of Legends? No, I don't mean who's the bottom tier ADC or the worst AD top laner or whatever. I mean, who is literally the worst champion to build AD on. While getting into this, I hypothesized that one of these 3 AP mage champions would be the actual worst champions to go full AD with the rules I put in place. And those were simply that every item they built had to have AD or attack speed on it, and any ability power on an item meant it was on the ban list. So Infinity Edge, Phantom Dancer, and Wit's End are all fair. Nash's Tooth is cheating. To illustrate just how bad our standards are for this, any champion with any kind of AD ratio on an ability is already too strong. AD Akali and Katarina are way overpowered for what we're testing, and anyone with on-hit effects is probably way too good as well. So someone like AD Thresh might as well be the god of all ADCs here. Speaking of whom, champions with high utility and or durability could buy AD and health to become bruiser or tanks. Bad ones, but still fulfill a role and therefore are also probably too good. Even the absolute worst build on a champion with a suppression is still a champ with a suppression. Also, Mel's has an AD ratio on his Voidlings, which ain't what it used to be, but still too good for this video. Someone with no AD ratios who is still way too good is Ahri. With a triple dash ult, decent range, and a good CC option on her charm, she's far from the horrors deeper within this video. So, who does come to mind as someone absolutely terrible to build AD on? Yuumi is commonly thought to be awful built AD, and you'd be right, she's pretty bad. She does, however, have an instant auto attack passive, an attack speed boost on her E which no longer drains a massive percentage of her mana, but doesn't heal anymore either. And if you think about it, Yuumi's W is kind of like Zhonya's. Her range also leaves much to be desired, but with her shields, attack speed, and how you could probably win by just sitting on a better player while you play games on your phone, I think we can do much worse than Yuumi. Look at this clip.
Oh, there he is.
AD Anivia actually has a lot of things going for her. Longer than average attack range, a built-in guardian angel of sorts, and high utility. So yes, on paper she sounds fine. Not good at all, but fine. At the end of the day, Anivia's stun time, wall, and slows are the same whether you build AP or not, so utility is always appreciated here. A few more ideas are champions like Swain and Singed, who seemingly wouldn't be great with AD, but since they also, once again, have good utility and durability, they can function to a bad degree, but not bad enough. Swain can also teamfight and stun people, while remaining decently tanky, and Singed can split push. I guess you can buy Titanic instead of AP for the wave clear. I'm sorry, please don't build that. One that would have made the list a year ago or so is Azir. The guy has literal anti-synergy with AD, where it just isn't a factor for his main form of attacking in his W. However, since relatively recently, he can apply on-hit effects with his soldiers, meaning Blade of the Rune King Azir is a thing you can actually do. It might not be much for a pure AD build, but it's still significantly better than anything anyone who made the list can do. He once again also just has decent utility and pretty good mobility. Support enchanters might seem like good suggestions as well, or rather bad suggestions, but Janna has high utility, powerful self-peel, and even free AD on her shield. Nami is better employed AP but can still achieve her utility and apply her E on auto attacks. And Soraka at least has a silence and some move speed bonuses on landing her Q. Not nearly awful enough. So the 3 I managed to narrow this down to are truly awful, with next to no utility, self-anti-synergies, awful auto-attack statistics, and though there is still a way to apply them to the role, it's not something you ever want to see anyone on your team doing. First up, we have Vladimir.
That doesn't sound right.
Who probably seems the best of the 3, which really sets the tone for what we're doing here. While he does essentially have a built-in Zhonya's Hourglass, his auto attack is pretty awful, with bad range and a bad animation. His ability damage desperately desires ability power, but without building any, it falls off pretty hard. His greatest quality is probably his laning phase being actually quite alright, even with AD. His pokes and sustains kinda auto-win some matchups, but it's still an absolutely awful thing to play. As a result, anything past early laning phase is just suffering, where either a Titanic or a static Shear is going to be all you have for wave clear, so you can't even split push right. Your range is abysmal for team fighting, and probably your best quality is now your ultimate for amplifying your team's damage more than your own, but it does still amplify your AD damage, which is kinda nice and would be genuinely good in Deadlock. You might be thinking you can just build AD items with HP on them to get ability power, and let me tell you, it isn't enough. Your noodle-armed abilities just got a little extra starch, that's all. Next we have Karthus. While it's not a true anti-synergy, building AD and also having Q means you're making your own Q cooldown and your auto-attack timer compete for DPS. Karthus suffers from the same range issues as Vladimir, but technically has more utility through his W wall slow and magic resistance shred. He's also very mana hungry when using abilities, but at least better AD will help you last hit to get your mana back with your E passive, right? He's not very good. However, a low cooldown Q does mean he can spam Spellblade procs with Trinity Force, with very low base AD. But this combined with his large AoE, decent base damage E, means he can at least split push to some effect. This was enough to win a game. It didn't feel very nice, but it was enough. Mirror Mana can also add some bite back into your Q, and I guess you can pretend your ult does more than just snatch assist gold. But with range like that, so little utility, an awful auto-attack animation, and barely useful abilities, it's no surprise that Karthus feels awful. Who am I kidding? None of these are a surprise. They're all bad! And mind, this is in no particular order just yet. We finally come to a champion riddled with anti-synergy. Aurelion Sol. Aurelion's main damage comes from his Q, a channel that you cannot auto-attack during. His flight doesn't let you auto-attack since you're supposed to Q instead during it, and his E doesn't exactly reward levels either, but does allow you to flush minions down the toilet for some Stardust. Stardust gives Aurelion things that you'd think might disqualify him from being bad, like a better AoE stun and percentage max HP damage. But when building AD, it's so much harder to use that Q damage, and worst of all, farming the Stardust is just awful. The percentage for executing enemies with E scales with Stardust, which means if you get it going well enough in the early game, you might have a case here. Just a very bad case indeed. AD Aurelion pretty much would only want Stardust for his flight range, execute threshold, and big ults. Since ideally you'd want to farm Stardust by attacking enemies with Q, you'd end up losing trades for sure by doing so, and all the while you drain your mana with weak wave clear. Luckily for AD Aurelion, he does have utility with his slow and ult stun, and even a 5% execute is something. I mean, to put it another way, Aurelion has a built-in collector passive. Surely that's something, right? Don't get any ideas. And he has a standard 550 auto-attack range, so at least he can teamfight as well as Vayne. We also did a little theory crafting, and Aurelion was genuinely busted with Mirror Mana when he was first reworked, because at the time you could rapidly toggle Q to rapidly apply Mirror Mana. This doesn't work anymore, but we tried a thing where you just tap a Mirror Mana proc between your auto attacks. No, it wasn't good at all. So the question now is, who exactly is the worst of these three? Having played them all, luckily with a pack of premades who all knew what they were in for, I think I've come to the verdict. Aurelion has some utility and a built-in collector. Karthus is a split-pushing god as far as these three are concerned, and Vladimir can actually potentially win a lane while carrying a bloody Zhonya's. But as far as AD builds on champions who are not actually supposed to build AD goes, and in my experience having actually played them this way, it has to go to the champion so awful with AD, his entire kit is rejecting it, and that's Aurelion Sol. Sure, Karthus and Vladimir have lower range, but that mostly only disables their team fighting. In laning phase, Vladimir's kit can hold its own a little bit, and Karthus at least has range on his Q, allowing them to do whatever it is they do past mid-game. Aurelion's early game stats aren't good anyway, and going AD makes scaling ever harder. The 550 range doesn't actually help team fighting at all, since all three of these guys are so bad at it anyway that it's hardly a game changer. I mean, they all fail miserably at it, but at least Karthus can split push abysmally. Aurelion can too, but his base damage makes it a slog, and you need to build AD wave clear to get any minions in the toilet. The flight is barely an escape. The Q max health damage is certainly nice and can be used against tanks, but it's not like you're building magic penetration to scale it, let alone ability power. And the best part of his kit for this, his ultimate, is just not enough to make him feel better to play than AD Karthus and AD Vladimir, which is certainly a sentence I didn't think I'd ever say. And I did give it a fair few shots, as I did with the other two. Even after getting a lead in bot lane in Ultimate Spellbook, where it should be easier to play a stupid build like this, it really struggled to do anything. That being said, it did certainly achieve some things that game. Speaking of which, I've been playing these champs on stream with premates because I'd rather not dump AD Karthus gameplay upon my randoms in ranked. So I'll also be uploading some of that gameplay over the coming days. So just in case you wanted to watch the worst builds imaginable in action, they'll be right here. Also, I finally got something good for my YouTube members. You'll get access to those much sooner. But if you think that there's anything worse than AD Aurelion Sol or anyone I've mentioned, or if you have anyone you think I should have mentioned, I'd love to hear your awful suggestions in the comments below. Just please don't play them. I did it, so you don't have to. Speaking of which, let me know what you think are the worst AP champions in the game. And I don't mean low tier AP mages, I mean actual Dogwater Deathcap Darius kind of bad. Thanks for watching this pointless video with a question no one asked, and I'll see you in the next one. Shoutouts to the members AJBeat91, Warsquid, Ultimate Ground, Cryo's Dad, Gentleman Zeta, Lunar Eagle 1996, 53rd Alabama Booty Obi-Wan Kenobi, N-Era, AC Immortal, Mr. Noodle, Bass1378, Gilbert Morals, Tierman Caranthil, Luxius, Dario Castro, Entity 9, Overseer, N. Luca, Colorado Cosmico, Hollowed, and Lunar Arc. Thank you so much for supporting the channel.